Basically, I'm the newest team member on Zebrafish, and I won't necessarily go through my full background with you right now, but it is on the website, so you can have a look at it there if you'd like. But basically, I've been working with people with neurologic disorders and injuries since about 2018, and pretty much last year, middle of last year, I started working with Stephanie and learning from her, taking her courses. And since probably early last year, I've been kind of implementing the zebrafish framework and concepts with my own clients at an ABT clinic in Indianapolis. Um, I've also been doing remote coaching since the start of the year, and Steph was great for kind of encouraging me to do that. And it's been going great since, and really enjoying doing the online coaching too. This is also my first zebrafish webinar, so please be kind with your questions and comments. But Stephanie's here and she'll be chiming in, like she said, and she'll be kind of taking parts of the presentation. So if you have any questions, the two of us can answer them. So basically, the questions that we want to answer for you is what remote coaching is, and what does it look like for someone with a spinal cord injury? What can remote coaching offer you as that a in-person training session might not? Are you a good candidate for remote coaching? What equipment and tech would you need at home for remote coaching? And how you can get started with home workouts and remote coaching with Zebrafish Neuro. Also, if you have any specific questions that you want to know the answer to, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, or put it in the chat, and Steph can either get back to you, or if there's a question she feels like it might kind of fit everyone, we might kind of come to it and answer it in real time as well. But we will have a Q&A period at the end as well, so we can chat then too.
Great, thanks, Barry.
Yep.
All right, so for those of you that are new to Zebrafish, I just wanted to, well, first of all, introduce myself. Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm one of the co-founders of Zebrafish, and of course a coach, and I wear all the hats. I wanted to share a little bit about the background of Zebrafish and remind you of our core values here, which inform our style of coaching and the programs we offer here. So we have several core values, but I'm just going to run over two today. Our first one is that we prioritize self-supported, self-generated movements, which basically means that everything that you'll do in our programs is designed to promote your own independent movements. In fact, the exercises that we select for you, whether that's whether that's in remote coaching or through the DIY program track, which again, I can talk about that at the end of the webinar. All of those exercises that we select for you, you are meant to be done 80 to 100% on your own. So 80 to 100% on your own. The majority of that work is going to be on you. And so if you need more than, say, 20% of support from an external source, like equipment or a trainer, a person, then it's our belief that that's probably not the best exercise for you to be doing right now. We want you to be doing the work. We don't want the machines or your helpers to be doing the work for you. So we just describe that as self-supported, self-generated movement. You are doing the movement, not something else. And this goes along with another core value that we have, which is ownership and autonomy. Our goal is that you don't have to rely on in-person support or say 10 hours a week of formal therapy appointments for you to feel good in your body. We want you to be able to have the education and the tools and the resources to have your body feel good in between those therapy sessions as well. All right. So our whole program at Zebrafish is, again, providing that education and those tools and those resources so that you can implement your recovery and wellness programs on your own, right? We're going to give you the guide, like some periodic guidance through it, but our goal is that you can do that on your own. And we'll share a little bit more about how we do that in our programs, but as one quick example, so for all of our remote coaching sessions, we give our clients a recording of the session. We give you a recording of that remote coaching session, which is done on Zoom, right? So that you can repeat that same exact session on your own 1 to 2 times before the next session happens. So again, that's that autonomy. We're like giving you the resources so that you can move your body on your own. And so again, it's our belief that when you have the right tools and the right resources and you're set up in the right way, your program becomes so much more sustainable. Like, if we're honest about it, after spinal cord injury, healing and maintaining your body is a lifelong endeavor. And the cost of that, whether we're talking about financial costs, time costs, energetic costs, like all of that adds up. And so we strive to give you the tools to make wellness a part of your life. We want this to be sustainable for the long term. And we do this by encouraging that ownership and autonomy in your program. Does that kind of make sense? You know, like that's like the quick and dirty of like what we're all about. All right. I'm going to just briefly talk about some of the systems that have inspired the zebrafish approach, basically systems that I've studied and have then incorporated as part of the program. The first is the motor development progression. And this refers to the sequence that infants go through as they're learning how to move their bodies and then move around in this world, all the way from laying on their back and doing kind of a happy baby pose, to rolling over, to sitting up, to crawling, to pulling themselves up to stand and then walking. So I really take inspiration from the motor development progression and the infant development progression, both in the positions that these babies are going in or are being in, and then also the movements that take them from one position to the next. So like, how does a baby roll over, or how does a baby get itself from a laying down position to a sitting up position? So I use that as inspiration and we teach our clients how to kind of mimic those. The second system that I really draw from is Pilates. I'm a Pilates teacher. I've been a Pilates teacher since 2015. I actually started working with spinal cord injury community in 2011, but I came into Pilates kind of a couple years after that. And I really felt that the emphasis that Pilates put on full body integration and the mat work from Pilates and the Pilates principles with breath work and concentration just really made sense for recovering from a neurological injury. I should also side note that a lot of people think you need equipment to do Pilates. Like, the actual Pilates method is really done on the floor. And then lastly, the fascia lines. I'm not going to get into the whole like why and how of this. That's actually explained in one of our programs. But basically, it's the use of our connective tissue, the chains of connective tissue in our bodies, to create stiffness, stability, and movement, and distribute forces within our body. So if you're interested in what that all means, I'm going to share a resource with you at the end so you can get a full rundown on what that is. Good. Questions on that? All right. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about my background and my pivot to remote coaching. Like, how did this come about to begin with? Well, COVID hit in 2020, in March 2020, and I went from a completely in-person business model, working one-on-one with my clients on Pilates equipment and being super hands-on, to then being literally like 100% hands-off, all on the floor in someone's living room with super simple props. I made a post about this not that long ago that it's been now officially 4 years that I've been remote coaching, and I have not looked back. One of the reasons why is because as I started going through this, both my clients and I were finding the value of remote coaching. And one of the biggest things, which again, I talked about in our core values, is that the clients reclaiming ownership of their own movement. So I was no longer there to do the movement for them. Like, we need to figure out how you're going to move your body when I'm not there. Again, there was that ownership, but then also that started a really interesting dynamic of partnership. We were now equal partners in the movement problem solving. So it's kind of like, hey, Casey, I want you to get into this position and do X, Y, and Z. Like, how can we get there together? Like, how can you get yourself there? And I'm thinking it's this way, but maybe you have another idea. So that collaboration was really cool. Second thing was that it was really, really easy to assign homework. Prior to the remote coaching, just for whatever the model was, I wasn't really assigning homework. It was, and it was challenging for people to replicate what we were doing in person at home. So clients were coming in, 3 times a week for several hours just to get their movement in, just to get their basic movement in, versus in the remote coaching model, I could just say literally press play on the recording, do that entire session again before the next time we meet. And that just created so much more autonomy and confidence and responsibility. I was like placing that back on my client, and it just turned out to be a really really great arrangement. I think we made lemonade out of lemons for sure, but then I also realized that like remote coaching actually has so many more benefits than the in-person work. And in fact, in 2021, when I did go back to in-person training and had that option available, a lot of my clients opted to continue for the remote coaching. And that was because one, maybe they weren't so comfortable, amidst the COVID, maybe they didn't want to come back in person, but also the commute. They wanted to like cut down on the commute. And they also really enjoyed the fact that they were owning their own movement. They were really taking ownership of that process, and it was so much more sustainable for them and their confidence in general. So yeah. Cool. Barry, I'd like to hear your story now for that.
Yeah, cool. So last year, almost a full year ago now, in June it'll be a year, I injured my leg in an accident and was on crutches for a few weeks, and still had to go to work. So I kind of had to figure out a new way how to train my clients at work. So I was fortunate enough to have some rehab aids that were at my facility that basically became my hands, and I had to sit back and kind of instruct them on how to help my clients and cue my clients, which for me then was like, right, I really got to figure out how to upscale my verbal cues, right? Because it was now just nothing of me physically. It's just all coming from how I say something or cue something. So in terms of the actual sessions, well, I started like really scaling things back and going to kind of those foundational movements like the motor development progression that Stephanie mentioned. And the exercise selection itself was really something that became empowering for people because they could move through some foundational movements. And there were so many like light bulb moments in their head where it was like, wow, I didn't realize I could do that myself. And it was cool because the aids would be there, but they weren't moving them the way I would have done in the past. They were just kind of there to assist. And I'd say, okay, help this person with their leg or whatever it was that they needed. But also being able to sit back and look at this person like fully and just have that whole view of them was, I think, for me was the great part because you could see little small details of, okay, they can't do this, that, or the other. What if we change this? But when I'm in it and I'm kind of like up on top of them, then it's you don't see that full picture. So you're kind of missing out on little things that you could cue them or help set up to make them more successful in their movements. So that was a huge thing for me. Um, and I think a lot of them at the start were pretty skeptical. They were kind of like, oh, I don't know if this is what we should do or whatever. But as they got to move more, it just became so empowering for them. They were really enjoying the sessions and owning the sessions. And one of the big things was that they were really seeing reductions in tone. A couple in particular that were coming a little bit more frequently. They they were seeing tone reductions that kind of lasted 24, 36 hours at times. And then because they were coming consistently, they were kind of having reductions in tone almost consistently, uh, where they'd usually have some pretty bad spasms in the morning when they wake up, and then all of a sudden their spasms were a lot less or just a lot easier to manage, which was really cool.
Cool. I love the tone reduction. I think that was like a huge byproduct, an unexpected byproduct of the floor-based and the
Yeah.
remote coaching. Yeah.
I think overall it became just a really positive experience for a lot of those clients, and I've stuck with it with a lot of them now. A few in particular that 90% of our sessions are on the floor, and a lot of it looks like I'm being lazy at my job and I'm just sitting there telling them what to do and not being involved. But it's been really really beneficial. So I've been enjoying it a lot.
All right. So what does remote coaching look like? Like, I just want to like zoom out and give you guys a kind of macro view of what all this entails, and then we'll kind of break it down a little bit. So first of all, we meet on Zoom. If you're feeling fancy, if my clients are feeling fancy, they'll put up 2 camera angles so I can see both a profile view and then a like a head view. And we'll show you what that looks like in a second. Majority of it is floor-based or on a bed if needed. Pets are welcome. The reason why, floor-based is my kind of bread and butter. I'm just going to pause that for a second. Floor-based is my bread and butter. If you are someone who wants to stay in the chair, we can definitely work with that. But I just also say like, hey, there's a ton of in-chair fitness and wellness programs out there online. Our bread and butter is this floor-based or bed-based kind of out of the chair training. What's next on there? Strength exercises. We do strength exercises. You can see here, Connor's just using a simple loop band to do some strength exercises, minimal equipment. We'll do transitional exercises, things like this, like different ways to roll over from laying on your back to laying on your side, learning how to move from one position to another. We work through the motor development progression, as I talked about, going from supine to prone to stomach, to side lying to seated. We'll show that seated transition in a second here. And then helpers are helpful, but not necessarily required. Jane, so this individual, Jane and Connor, Jane is amazing. She wants to be super involved. She's into movement. She loves learning about this stuff. So she is super involved. But I also have clients who literally are just like, yeah, like their partner's like giving them a pillow every once in a while. So any sort of variety of involvement from your helper is welcome. It's kind of macro. Thank you, Jane and Connor, for that visual. Go ahead, Barry.
So basically, with a remote coaching session and like kind of remote coaching program overall, we typically host like 1 or 2 sessions a week, with the idea being that you do a session with us online, and then we give you homework to do until we meet again on that next session. So you'll have access to a Google Doc that we put in all the important information. So listing out all the homework there that Stephanie's kind of highlighting. So that's your exercises to do, and it's pretty much stuff that you've already done within a session, with maybe a little progression or something like that built in. And then you'll also have access to the recording on Zoom through that link. So Stephanie's circling there with the date of your session. It will be hyperlinked to your own private YouTube channel that you can access the video and watch it back and kind of follow it along if you like. And then below that, then again, you'll have all the exercises that we did in our session listed out there for you, with things highlighted about like what cues might have worked well or what setups worked well, things like that. So that's typically like a general idea of how it works. And then as coaches, we're always available like through email or text, just with questions or comments that we can kind of problem solve on the fly, and quickly. It doesn't have to be like a formal Zoom call to kind of troubleshoot something. This slide here is basically just an objective way of kind of highlighting the differences between remote coaching and an in-person training session. It's not in any way geared towards like swaying you either way. We both know there's value and benefits to in-person training and remote training. The idea behind this is that while I'm kind of talking through this, just kind of ask yourself, what do you value and prioritize in your recovery and wellness program right now? And what would you want out of your investment and time? So basically, the trainer is hands off. Remote coaching, yes, and in person, it's not as common. And personally, as a coach, I find it almost hard to keep my hands off someone when you're in an in person session. So we try to remove the external supports and try to really improve those internal and intrinsic supports where you're using your own body to achieve a movement and it's not depending on someone else. We like to say, like, embrace the struggle. So you're gonna maybe struggle to get through a movement, but that's where we come in and we cue you and help you with a setup so that an exercise is challenging but achievable, uh, which again a lot of clients are finding very beneficial. Supported standing and gait training. It's not going to happen on Zoom typically, but with the in person training, sometimes that can be a big focus. And if that's something that someone needs right now, we're all for it, and we support people's needs and what motivates them. But yeah, okay. A big one, I think, for a lot of people is the commute, whether that's they have transport transport issues, like do they have their own vehicle that they can drive themselves, or do they need public transport or transport services? I know at least here in Indiana, it can be really limiting for people and can be unreliable at times. But it's something that really cuts out some time for people. They get an hour of a workout online, and then they're back to their day to day. There's no travel back and forth, which is really great. Um, Promoting solo workouts. So again, like we said, we provide homework with each session, and for that week or month, whatever it is, the idea of promoting independence and working out by yourself and just moving by yourself at whatever time of the day suits you, or multiple times a day that suits you, where it's not a financial investment that at that point it's just you moving your body. The high intensity, um, I find you can do it in both. Obviously, in person, you can do that with equipment, the machines, and hands-on support. But with the remote coaching, there's definitely ways of doing that. A lot of the times, we find moving from one position to another and just repping that out. Often, we kind of refer to them as modified burpees or zebrafish burpees. Really gets people breathing hard and gets their heart rate going. So I think there may be a misconception about remote coaching where it's all very slow and methodical movements, but it's definitely something that you can bring cardio aspects into as well. Having access to newer technologies and expensive equipment. Again, typically we promote really basic equipment for home programs. In person, you'll definitely find access to a lot of that type of stuff, which is great. Again, if that's something that you find is really benefiting you now, that's awesome, and we encourage that as well. The flexible schedule is awesome. Like I kind of mentioned, when you just feel like you want to get down on the ground or onto your bed and move, that's when you do it. With the homework that we provide, it's kind of step by step. You know what you need to do, and even for me personally, like when I have a plan and I know I need to do these 5, 6 exercises, it's so much easier to do it than just saying, all right, I'm going to get on the floor and then do something. But it's I find for me having the workout plan is really helpful and motivating to get down and do it. Having access to trainers, depending on where you're living. I don't know what kind of access you have to trainers and coaches and facilities, but with the online coaching, you can be anywhere at any time and have access to a really great coach, which is awesome. And then this a sustainable option. So overall, it's a much more cost effective version because you could be doing sessions every day of the week by yourself with the coach online, and in the long run, it's definitely a cost saver.
Barry, I was just thinking of one line item that we didn't put on here, that someone's actually brought up before, was the social aspect.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people go to the bigger clinics to have that social community and that hub. But we have talked, Barry and I have talked about this summer doing focus groups to figure out how we can make this online community a bit more social and having online group programs and things like that. So if I were to add just one more line item there, I would say check on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Steph and I, we kind of chatted and we decided, like, let's talk about who it is that would suit this type of coaching and programming. So we kind of broke down into three categories, and the first category was personality. What type of person is going to be good for this? So someone who's curious, someone who wants to know more about their body and what they can do with their body and how their body is all connected. Someone being open-minded and being able to kind of go with the flow and say, yeah, I'll try this. Like, put the skepticism to the side for a minute and just see what happens with some of our coaching ideas and practices. Someone who's driven, self-motivated, persistent, someone who will do the homework. Okay, this isn't get online and do one session a week or once a month or whatever, and you get the results. There needs to be some consistency in the workouts, and that's where the real progress comes from, is the consistency and the independence in your movement at home. And yeah, again, independence, someone who wants to be more independent. If where you're at right now is where you're at and you're comfortable with that, that's awesome, and we love that. But trying to look for more independence is another great characteristic that I think helps people be motivated to continue exploring their body and being active in your program. So we find that when we collaborate with people and we talk to people in their sessions, sometimes the cue that I give, it's just not quite clicking, and say, what if I do this? Then it just works. I'm like, yeah, try it. You tell me what feels better for you. And then it kind of becomes like a open dialogue between coach and client. It's not just a one way. It's not just me talking at the client. It's conversation both ways. Lifestyle. So who people working 9 to 5, maybe the clinics in your area, they don't open after hours or before typical working hours. So someone who's working 9 to 5 may not have access to it. So this could be a great option for them, where they could meet in the evening with an online coach, but then in their own time after work or before work, start doing their homework and their home programs. Someone who can't drive or can't access transport services, that one kind of speaks for itself. It's great to be at home and be able to get a good solid workout in. And same with that next point about living far away. I know, at least in the facility I'm at, there's people that travel over an hour and a half, some people even 2 hours each way just to get to a rehab clinic. So yeah, cutting out that travel time would be awesome, and the cost of that travel too. And someone who wants to make progress in between, someone who wants to do one session one week and then come back and show off to their coach the next week, say, look what I can do now after last week. So looking for that kind of continuous improvement throughout the week. And then some people may just have other reasons and kind of external factors, but some people, maybe if they're kind of frustrated with their current therapy, maybe they've been doing the same thing over and over for a few years now, and it just seems kind of methodical, and kind of there's no question of what am I going to do today. It's just you come in, you're going to do this, this, and this, and that's it. So some people who will suit it is when they're looking for a new challenge, a new way to challenge your body and bring novelty into your workouts and your movement patterns, and how those movement patterns can be kind of incorporated into your everyday. It doesn't have to be just your workout. It could be just while you're in your chair and you're pressure relieving or you're reaching for something on the floor, how you can kind of incorporate all these different practices into your kind of all day, everyday life. Someone who's looking for cross training for sport. So people looking for more trunk stability, better shoulder health, that type of stuff. It's great reason to join like an online program as well, where they're maybe training in person for their sport, but then want to add those extra points, and travel's too much, so now they add the remote coaching to their in-person training. And then for people who are maybe going to a rehab facility or a health service of some kind, some people go and all their workouts are really kind of slower and lower intensity. Some, like maybe it's acupuncture or massage or meditation. The remote coaching then can bring that high intensity aspect to it, or vice versa. If the in-person training is really high intensity and a like solid workout, then the remote coaching can be more mobility focused and joint health focused and that type of thing. So it's really customizable to the client and what their situation is. And maybe it's just someone who wants to get into an online program, someone who's looking for some sort of social group that they can connect with. Maybe there's not a lot going on in your area, or the clinic that is in your area doesn't promote that kind of social aspect of things. So, and like Steph said, we're going to try to incorporate that in. We're going to put plans together over the summer to make that a thing. So May 11th, we're hoping to. Well, we're going to host a kind of a beta class for like a group program. So mark the calendar for that one and join us if you can. So yeah, basically, if you're wanting better new results or something different, it's time to do something different, which the online coaching could be for you. Okay. So then, what's the barrier? What's stopping you from getting involved with online coaching? And a big one that we find is maybe it's the floor transfers and getting on the floor, right? So just to kind of preempt that, it's what we call it floor-based movement. Oftentimes, for people who maybe just aren't ready to get on the floor or don't have that option, doing workouts on your bed, or if you have a therapy table at home or something like that, definitely an option. It doesn't have to be on the floor. So just to kind of highlight those differences, we just put together this little table, just to highlight it and show that it is still possible to do it. So in terms of accessibility, I think for the most part, people can get in and out of their bed, whether it's with a Hoyer or transfers or whatever the case may be. On the floor, depending on your ability, is accessible, or maybe you just need some new ideas on how you might get to the floor, which is something that we will kind of go through later. Having unlimited space, and by unlimited we mean like we're not going to roll off the edge of the bed or off the edge of a therapy table. So being on the floor creates that kind of safe environment. And then being on the floor too, having that harder surface just makes it easier to move, so that when you're trying to like push into the ground, it's not a soft, squishy bed that makes it kind of more difficult to kind of get some grip and grounding. The floor is novel. It's new, and even for trainers that we train and kind of coach these concepts to, it's different to get down on the floor and move. It's not the same as getting onto on a therapy table. There just is something different about it. And then having a partner to assist, whether you're on the floor or in your bed, it's a possibility and it's an option for the transfer and for the workout. And maybe being in bed is better for that partner who's assisting you. Maybe it's more accessible for them if they have their own mobility issues or anything like that. And then, yeah, it's a regular daily, nightly transfer that a lot of people do getting into bed. So it's the same thing. Doesn't have to be anything different. Yeah, and then hanging out on the grass outside. If you can get on the floor, you can get down on the grass in the park during the summer or the spring. And I know for here, it's coming into that nice weather, so being able to get down on the grass would be great.
Yeah. All right. But for those of you who are interested in actually getting down on the ground, I wanted to just show a few videos of some of the options that you could explore either on your own or with a coach and a helper on your end if you are unable to do this independently. And I just want to share just a disclaimer, like these are just some examples of things I've done in the past with my clients. I'm 5'5" and I'm like a $130. So I'm not a big person by any means, but I've gotten people who are bigger than me on and off the floor and with using some of these strategies. So here we go. Let's take a look. So this one is, I call the reverse slide down. I just made up the names of these, by the way. They're not like an official thing. So basically with this one, you would roll over on the bed and then make sure the mat's in place and you kind of just slither down. And I'm just decelerating the descent there and making sure the knees are there. And then from here, I just guide the hips down. And of course, Theo's helping me out as well, making sure that he doesn't, he's helping as much as he can. So that's one option. That's the reverse slide down. Then another option is a step down from the wheelchair. So this is by taking a few different things like an ottoman, or maybe you have someone build some boxes or some step stools, and you can kind of just bump down, kind of stepping stool at a time all the way down. I think I had this second box here, but Theo decided not to use it for whatever reason in this video to come all the way down to the ground. I don't know why that video is freezing, but I think you get the gist. Yeah, that's for someone that can, help out a little bit more than just the reverse slide down. Yeah, we're going to go through these quite quickly just to give you a visual and an idea. You'll have access to all these videos in the email that I'm going to send out after class or after the webinar. This is called the step down and then the step and a roll down. Excuse me, that slide has a typo. So for this one, I'm just using a plyo box. It's called a plyo box. You can get these on Amazon for $75. If that unlocks the floor for you, it's actually not that bad of an investment. So with this one, I'm just guiding the hips down, and then the plyo box is big enough that my girl Ruby here can, come on, Ruby, let's go. We're talking strategy. This is a real life session. So you can see we're gonna have her just roll kind of onto her front, and then it's almost like the knees down, slide down too. And that's Ruby's now favorite way to transfer down on the floor. She does that relatively on her own with just her husband giving a little bit of support. Really like that option. Now, getting back up is the bigger challenge, I think. And there's a few ways that you can do this. There's the step up, kind of the same. Oops, the volume on that. There's a stepping stone on the way up. Right. So it's just a stepping stone kind of on the way up. And obviously that takes a little bit more oomph and a little bit more strength there, but that's another option. This next one is another video example of Jane and Connor, who we saw earlier. And again, Jane is really involved. She loves this stuff. You'll see Jane is like, she's not like a bodybuilder or anything. And Connor's actually like kind of a decently sized man. But Jane's still able to leverage her body in a way that she can stepping stone him up using some belts and things like that. So the reason why there's a weird split screen here is this is taken from a webinar that, again, we're going to give to you guys. But here we go. Let's watch this. Oops. She pops them up on a stack of yoga blocks and makes, she's like kind of wedging him up against the bed. She repositions his feet so that she can lever through his bones. And then they're talking strategy. And then they pop up again. Strong lady, but again, she's just really good at leveraging her body. Again, those are just a few examples of how I've gotten people on and off the floor. I'm going to give everyone in the email recap that you're going to get after this webinar, you're going to get access. Everyone gets free access to a online program that we have that explains and breaks that down a lot more. So you can revisit those video tutorials in depth in that online program. We also post about this every once in a while on Instagram. Coming soon, if you use the hashtag ZN Floor Transfers, I'm going to be going through all of our posts and putting a little hashtag there. So it's going to be really easy to search and find all of our videos that give you transfer tutorials on our Instagram. But hang tight, I'm working on that project.
Okay, so when we think about what you might need for a remote coaching session, there's certain pieces of equipment that we recommend. It's not an absolute must, but we have some options here for you. So the first thing that we have that we recommend is basically getting a floor mat so that you're not directly on the ground. Steph, do you want to pull up those pictures as I go along? So there's a floor mat there. Again, most of these you can buy on Amazon or website like sporting websites, or whatever. Typically 75 to 100 bucks for a floor mat, and that's usually about a 4 by 8 foot mat. A squish ball. We now have official Zebrafish Neuro ones. They're $15, and we'll have a 20% off sale on those starting this week. And then lots of pillows. Pillows are going to be great for helping set you up in certain positions and kind of making exercises more accessible by limiting range of motion and stuff. I see Terry's got his squish ball in hand there. That's cool. And then these next pieces of equipment, they're not necessarily a must. The ones on top there are definitely ones that we'd recommend for almost everyone. And then some of these next ones are more for people who might be looking for further challenges. So the yoga block, pretty straightforward. Furniture sliders. Sometimes we can just use towels if you're on a hardwood floor. Resistance bands with handles, and just loop bands. So all pretty affordable piece of equipment that you can get pretty much anywhere online. Okay, and then in addition to equipment for being on the floor, what do you need to actually get a remote session, right? So we need good internet connections and high speed so that we can see you in real time and it's not blurry. A camera, either on your laptop, your iPad, or your phone, anything like that that you can set up and prop so that we can see you from that camera. So anything like this, like a tripod or a stand that you can angle to the floor and we can kind of see a full body view of you. And then wireless headphones are great. They're not a necessity, but we'll kind of go through that quickly with Steph and show you how the headphones can influence a session and kind of change the communication. And then Zoom. We'll do everything through Zoom.
We're gonna do we're gonna do a little demo on what it looks like to kind of stage a session, and I'm gonna be the client here. So let's say I get on my session. The first thing that you want to think about is the framing. We want to be able to see you. So oftentimes what happens is people get on their session and then they're like, all right, I'm ready to go. And so then Barry, you would say,
I'd have to say, like, can you tilt that camera down so that we can see you? And then maybe depending if they're too close, maybe we might have to have them scoot back towards the wall or move their camera back. So pretty basic things, but just things that will make all the difference for your session.
Yeah, and making sure that we can see
body.
Yeah, full body, like head to toe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say this is even probably a little too close.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And then considering some different angles too, right? So if this was on the floor, this is a nice view, like I can see directly profile view. But sometimes it's nice to see a little bit kind of higher too. So I'll have people put their camera up, maybe on a desk or a table, and then we can tip the camera down. And then that's kind of nice because then I get this like upper view, right? Oftentimes, what people have a problem with when they use your tablet or your iPhone is that, you know how when you have your tablet and you're like leaning it against something, it's sort of angled up. So having that stand or having some sort of contingency setup for the camera angle to be angled down is really helpful to have a kind of a little bit more of an upper view. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit too about the wireless headphones, because I want you to hear the difference between when you have your wireless headphones in and when you don't, right? So if you are all watching me, so let's say it's my session, I'm on the floor, I'm the client, I'm doing the movement session. This is what it sounds like when I have my headphones in. And hypothetically, if I were to turn around and do the movement this way, you could still hear me very clear, and I can still hear my coach very clear, even though my computer is way over there, right? The difference in that, let's just compare and contrast. I now changed my audio to be coming from my computer, so the microphone that's in my computer, which means when I turn around, it's a little bit harder to hear me, I'm assuming, because I'm still talking to you right now, but it is harder for you to hear me. And also, my coach is coming out of the speaker way over there, so that's really hard to hear too. Zoom, I'm going to switch this back. Zoom has done a really, really wonderful job with noise cancellation. And so anytime that you're away from the camera, Zoom will cancel out your volume, even if you're the one spotlighted. Zoom does a really good job of that. So we just recommend, if you have access to headphones or ear pods, that's best. If you don't, that's okay too. We just have to figure out the noise cancellation settings on Zoom. There's just a little extra step to that. And then lastly, a lot of times people will say, well, my camera is way over there and I can't see you as my coach. I feel like I'm kind of just talking into the ethers. So people will then want to join in from a second device. Start video. Can you all see two of me?
Yes.
Yay, awesome. So let's say we keep my camera up here. That's my coach's camera. But then I get to talk to my coach here. Does that make sense? It gives both of you just an extra angle to work with. And in addition, then the coach can see maybe my whole profile view, but then maybe there's a different view in front that's helpful, right? That's if you're getting fancy. So don't feel like that needs to happen, but it's just another tool for us to use in the remote coaching world. Real quick on just the helpers. Last thing that you might need for a session is maybe a helper. You might be interested in having a helper if you need a little bit more help moving around on the floor. So let's say you're working on rolling over right now, or it's challenging for you to sit up on your own right now. Having a helper might give you a little bit more option in our remote coaching if you have someone to give you that little extra nudge. If you have limited sensation and you just want someone to like check to make sure your toe is not like going off in a different direction, right? That can be helpful. And then even if you are able to move yourself around on the floor pretty well, having a helper can also just kind of expedite setups and things like that so that you can make the most out of the time with your coach. Keeping in mind that we still want the work to be done 80 to 100% on your own. So that helper is just sort of there to boost the session, not do it for you. Things that we want to know about your helper as an option is how available are they during your sessions? Are they sort of dipping in and out, or are they there the whole time? And also, how much do they want to get involved? Are they sort of more just like, hey, I'm just going to be a pillow placer. I'm just going to put pillows where you need them when you ask me to. Or are they going to be more like a Jane, like the lady that we saw in the example videos where your helper's really involved and wants to learn all the things and be a super helper. no matter what the level of involvement, experience, or strength of your helper, we will guide them on how to best support the session. Like Barry talked about in his experience, when he was hurt, he had to guide his aides on to be his hands essentially. So we're able to help your helper help you. All right. So now here's the question. How do you get started with at-home and remote coaching programs? There's a few ways that you can go about this. One is starting with our DIY programs, which are self-paced online programs. The SDI Athlete Starter Bundle has 2 programs in it. One of them is called Connecting to the Core, and that talks all about how we use fascial lines, and then some beginner and kind of starter exercises, both in the chair and on the floor. And then the second program in that one is called Improving Posture. It's a little bit bigger, it's more robust, it has information on what it means to build core strength, and then also includes a full-length floor-based program to get you started with the basics. I find that when my clients have already run through these programs, it's a little bit expedited in our first session. It's like, I don't really have to explain what the spiral line is. They've already learned what that is. So, and they've already gotten comfortable on the floor. So that's a really nice track to go with, from either directly into one-on-one coaching. If you're just like, nah, I just want the real deal, I just want to go straight to one-on-one coaching, you can do that too. We start with an assessment. The assessment is a 75-minute session where we get to know you and your body. So while I call it an assessment, but I'm actually interested in changing the name of this first session, because it doesn't feel like I'm testing you or poking or prodding you or testing your muscle strength. Really, it's a guided session through the motor development progression to see how your movement coordination is. So while we are learning about your movement, you are also having a movement experience and self-discovery in that way too. Those assessments are, of course, recorded. You get those session notes. You're going to get 2 to 3 homework exercises to work with. And normally those sessions are $175, but through the month of April, we're running a special right now. Barry is able to offer an assessment for you for just $100. So if you're interested in taking advantage of our April special, again, I'm going to have the links in all the email follow-up stuff. Barry only has 2 spots available left this month. So we hope that you take advantage of that if you know that you're ready to get started. After that assessment, then you would roll into what's called our 6 series jumpstart. And this is 6 sessions that are about 55 minutes long. They're to be completed within 8 weeks. And the reason why we want that time constraint, is so that you get the momentum going for your home program. You get the recorded sessions, of course, you get the session notes, you get 2 to 3 homework exercises every session, so that by the end of that 6-week series, you have a full customized home program for you to work through, plus six full recordings as well. After that 6 series jumpstart, you then have the option to continue with weekly sessions, or if you want to go to every other week, or if you want to just do monthly consultations to sort of update your program as you go. Then we would talk about those options as you came to it. But that's kind of our track on how we do remote coaching. It's all designed to get you started, get the momentum going, get your foundations in there, and send you on, and get you on your way for sustainable programs and owning your own movement. So